application menu. It's also known as the big red A. That's up here in the top left corner. It's difficult to tell that it's even a button, but it is. The application menu is where you will go to open up files, to save files, print files, and to manage many of the settings within AutoCAD itself. So to use the application menu, just move your cursor up to the top left corner here into the big red A, and you'll see that little triangle. It points down. And we'll see this over and over again in AutoCAD. A lot of these objects here in the ribbon have a little triangle. When you see that, that means you can click there and it will open up a menu. So if we click on the application menu, it brings this up. And you'll see a lot of different things here in this window. Here we have the new, open, save, and save as options. These are fairly self-explanatory. If you want to start a new file, you will click New. If you want to open an existing file, click Open. If you want to save your drawing, or if you want to save as, save it as a different name. Now, there are many ways to use your drawing. One way is to print it out, which we'll cover extensively in a later chapter. But you might be surprised at how difficult it can actually be to print a drawing, and that's okay. That's where the publish and the print come into play. We'll talk about those later on in much greater detail so you'll understand. There is a difference between print and publish. However, it's just the way to get your electronic file into a different format. And it could be hard copy on paper, or it could be in some other electronic format for other people to look at and manipulate. The export command is meant to put your AutoCAD file into some sort of digital format. It kind of works similarly to the print and publish commands. We'll talk about them a little bit later. But this will export your AutoCAD file into a different file format, like a PDF file that you can email to a client or a vendor. So you'll just come here, export, and click PDF. And we have different formats. Some of them come from Autodesk themselves, like the DWF, DWFX, or 3D DWF. And these file types are very similar to a PDF, though they're more AutoCAD-like. So if you've used AutoCAD, you can use a DWF reviewer software program called Design Review. That's free. It comes from Autodesk. But there are other formats here as well, like DGN. That's a different CAD file type that is used by many different programs. FBX is another file type that you can make, and there are other formats. You can click here, and it will bring up some options for you to choose from. And you can see here, you can save your file however you want to save it or export it. Click down here in this bar, you'll see the little triangle. Again, that indicates that there's more choices. And these are the different file types you can save it as. A DGN file, DWG file, a DXX, EPS, even a bitmap file, IGS files, etc. Now the Drawing Utilities feature has many tools in it. And if we come back up here to the application menu, and we see here the Drawing Utilities. Now you notice on all of these options here, I can click on either one of these buttons, and this will start the new command, for example, and that will just bring up a list of template files that I can go from. But you'll also notice when I go up to the application menu, and I can see this button here. When I hover over the new, it populates a list of new options, and same thing with open, it populates different open options. So I can open up some sample files online, I can open up a DGN file, a sheet set, or drawing from the cloud from our Autodesk 360 account, or just a regular AutoCAD drawing. Now this save doesn't have any options to it, but save as does, and we can save it as a lot of different file types. Here's the export button, which we already looked at. Publish and print, we're going to look at those later, but now drawing utilities. We have a lot of different options here. We can look at drawing properties. This will set and display different bits of information about our file. This is what you get. It's very similar to selecting the file in Windows Explorer. Now you can add all of this to it that you want. We go back to our drawing utilities. We see our list here is populated, and we have units. We can audit the file, which will help us look at the data that's corrupted or messed up. So a lot of times AutoCAD will crash on you, and when it does, it could mess up your file. So you'll want to run what's called an audit. AutoCAD will scan the file, say, hey, look, there are errors, and we're going to fix those for you. The status gives you the drawing status and modes, bits of information about your file that you might need to know. Purge will help clean it. The recover works similarly to an audit. Sometimes it just gets messed up, and so you can't open a file because it has been corrupted. That's rare, but it does happen. Then you want to run the recover option. And so you hit recover, and it will tell you to open up the file, and it will run an audit before it fully opens the drawing for you and fix errors. That comes in handy when you can't open the file because it has too many errors. Again, this is extremely rare, but if that is the case, then you may want to come here. So recover and audit are similar, but you run the audit on a file you currently have open, and you run a recover on a file you can't open or don't have open. Here we have open the drawing recovery manager. And this is a manager where you can go and recover multiple files at one time instead of doing one at a time. And we have recover and recover with XREFs. When we reference a file to one of our other files, we'll talk about that part later on. It could have errors in it. Luckily, though, that rarely happens. There are two icons near the top of the application menu. These two icons will list either all of the drawings that you have currently opened, which is this one here on the right. And if I select it, you'll see I only have the one drawing open, drawing number 1. So this is nice because it will give you a list of everything you have. If we click here, this will give you a list of drawings that you've had opened recently. And if you hover over them, it will give you a preview. So you get an idea of what they look like. This here will open up options. Now we're going to go into options here and there through the different lessons. And if I tell you to open up options, that's one way to get to it. Remember, one thing you're going to find out about AutoCAD is there are a million different ways to do the exact same thing. The way I prefer to go to options, though, is to just type in OP for options and press enter. And that will bring you up to a lot of different settings here that you have to control the way AutoCAD runs, to control the way it looks, and control how you interact with it. We're only going to tweak it a little bit here and there. Now, AutoCAD can do a lot of search for you right within the command line. And we'll talk about the command line later on. If you like to use the ribbon and you want to use it more often because you're more comfortable that way and you can't find a command, just go up to the application menu, and in this top bar right here, that's a flashing cursor, and it's there by default when you start the application menu. Well, there you can do a search for commands. So let's look for, say, data extract. You'd see here when I start typing in the commands, it's searching for it and it finds it. There's extract data and there's data extraction. But you can see these three commands are really the exact same command. They're just found in different places. This one is found on the ribbon tab, insert. And then if you come down here, it says linking and extraction, extract data. This one is found on the annotate tab on the ribbon. This is just the command. So that means you can enter the command on the command line, or you can go to either of these two ribbon tabs and find the command. Now, one thing that's really cool is that, okay, I found the command. I don't want to go looking for it now. I can just click and it starts the command. Now, next to the application menu is the QAT. That stands for the Quick Access Toolbar. That's this guy right here. This is a very handy toolbar and one that has a lot of commands in it. This toolbar is meant to hold commands that you need frequently. There are some default commands that you can turn on or off in it, and it's easily customized. So here we have the new command, and a lot of these commands are also found right here in the application menu. You'll see it looks very similar, and the icons are even the same. This is the icon for new. It looks like a file folder that you're opening. The save command is to an old floppy disk, the save icon. Save as has a little pencil. This one is a printer, and so it prints. We have undo, and we have redo. And here we have our workspaces, and we'll talk about workspaces later on. If you want to add more commands to the QAT or the Quick Access Toolbar, you can click on the More Tools button. If you click right here, this little arrow, everything with a check by it is turned on. The ones that don't have checks on them mean they're not turned on, but they're available. I like to have the match properties turned on, so I'm going to click it and turn it on. And here it is right there. So you can see that you can customize the Quick Access Toolbar very easily. Now, if there are some commands in here that you want to use but aren't in here, you can go to More Commands, and this will bring up a small version of the custom user interface. To customize it, essentially, you can find any one you want. I'm going to click 3D Mirror just because it's here. I'm going to left click and hold, and then drag it up, put it where I want to in the Quick Access Toolbar, and then release. And it drops it right in there. Now I have very quick access to the 3D mirror button. When you're finished, click OK, and now it's been saved. So if you accidentally put something on there you don't like, you can right-click on the Quick Access toolbar and say Remove from Quick Access toolbar. It's that simple. And I can come here and say Remove, so that one goes away. Now if I right-click up here, I can add a separator to help you organize your commands. Once again, get to that customization, or I can show the Quick Access toolbar below the ribbon. So if I want it down here, that's fine. Because a lot of these tools you can use while you work inside AutoCAD, and that's okay. So you can put it down here if you'd like to. I prefer it up there. Just right-click on it again, and then select the Show Quick Access toolbar above the ribbon. So that's the Quick Access toolbar in the application menu. AutoCAD 2009 introduced the new interface system known as the ribbon. Since then, each release has made it even better. It moves from tab to tab much more quickly now than it did when it was first introduced. This is good. The ribbon is your main source of commands and drawing tools. It groups similar commands together. It also groups the commands by workflow, meaning that the commands in a tab or panel are often executed in a series. The ribbon, which is right here, by default is stationary at the top of your screen. It's made up of tabs. We have Home tab, Insert, Annotate, Layout, etc. The main tab is your Home tab. This tab has several different commands in it that are used regardless of your design industry or project. These commands are also amongst the most commonly used. In each tab has a panel. This is the Draw panel, Modify, Layers, Annotation, etc. The panels contain the commands and tools that you will use. Panels, like the tabs, are grouped by similar commands. For example, the Draw panel, here on the left, has the commands in it that you need to use to draw lines, polylines, circles of different types, arcs, etc. If you're creating new content or new line work, you're probably going to use one of the commands in the Draw panel. Similarly, the Annotation panel has text in it. You can draw multi-line text, single-line text, dimensions, leaders, etc. To switch between tabs, click the tab that you want to work in. Insert, Annotate. This brings up the different panels for that tab group. To start a command, you just go to the panel with the command on it that you want and click the command and start drawing. And there's a dimension. If you aren't sure which command icon is for which command, just hover over it. You see that? A tooltip balloon will come up and it will show you a bit of information about the command. First, it will tell you the name and a brief description. If you stay there and let it sit for a few more moments, even more information about that command will come up. These are default settings, so if someone else installed this for you, they may have turned that off. And you may find them annoying, and you may want to turn them off. That's up to you. I'll show you how to do that very quickly. Open up your options windows. In previous sections, we went over to the application menu. Click on options. You can do that all you want, or you can just type in OP on the command line and press enter. This will also bring up the options window. Now your tooltips and your rollover tooltips are display features. So you want to go to the display tab in your options, and it's in this Windows Elements section, and it's right here. You can show the tooltips and you can show the rollover tooltips. The rollover tooltips are the real quick ones. Those are the ones that come up nearly immediately and they tell you the name of the command with a very short brief description of what it does. Now the tooltips are the ones that pop up later and go into great depth, and then sometimes they'll even show a brief animation of how it works. You can delay that by a lot of different settings. You can show them, or you can tell it to wait 2 seconds or 10 seconds, etc. It's up to you. When you want it fast. You don't want to sit there for 10 seconds. So keeping it at about 2 or 3 is a good idea. And if you don't want them at all, just turn it off. When you're done, click OK. And if you've turned them off but find, hey, that might be useful, I want to try it out for a while, you can go back and turn it back on. Not a problem. Now some of the panels in the ribbon collapse, meaning that they shrink so as to give us more room on the screen. Like here in the Annotate tab, in the text panel, down arrow right here. Same with these dimensions, but not with the leaders. This gives you more commands, more options. It does this to save space. As you can see here in the dimensions, there are a lot more commands that are available. And sometimes too, you'll see it in the commands themselves. That means there are options available to you. Click it, and a list will come down and show you. Now this is the case in a lot of different panels, like the draw panel, or the modify, or the layers. The commands you're going to use in the layers panel the most are shown up here. The ones you're going to want to use but not all the time will be down here. Same thing with modify and with draw. So if you see that arrow, click it, that means there's more options available. It just opens up a different flyout panel. And some of these commands, like the circle, have their own flyout. Just like the panels do, so do the commands. These are all circle commands, but they will draw the circle in many different ways. We'll talk about it in that section later. This will draw a circle from the center to the radius. This will draw a circle based on its center and diameter, based on 2 points, 3 points, 2 tangent points in a radius, or 3 tangent points. You'll find that this is true in a lot of different other commands. Some of these flyouts have different commands in them, like a fillet, chamfer, or a blend tool, or a trim or extend, etc. Some of them will populate it with a big long list, like in the layers here. So that's how you get to any of your commands in the ribbon. You find what you want, you click it directly, or maybe there's a flyout, and then you just click it, and you start your command. There's a circle that we just drew with 2 points. If you're not finding exactly what you're looking for, but you really know that the circle options should be around here, click an arrow. That will bring up more options that you can choose from. Same thing with the commands and with the panels. Now you can reposition your ribbon, or you can make some changes to the way it looks. You can do that up here. This is your minimize button. Right now you can minimize it to just the tabs. That saves a lot of space. Now all of your commands are still there. You just have to click the Home tab to see them. Then you have everything here. As you go about your business, it slowly disappears. Same thing with Annotate. And here they are. That saves you a lot of screen space. Now if you know where your commands are, you're very comfortable with a ribbon, then this is a great way to go. But if you're not so sure where the commands are yet, you may want to keep it expanded out. You have a few more options. You can minimize just to the panel titles. So that, okay, here's Annotate. Oh yeah, text, dimensions, leaders, etc. I can get to those. That saves me some space, but it also lets me know what's in that ribbon tab. Or I can minimize it to the panel buttons themselves. So you get a visual display of the draw panel with all of the commands here. It's up to you. I can click on this button here to cycle through everything. Or just to return it back to normal. It's up to you. I like working this way because it helps me to know where everything is, and I'm going to leave it on this setting for the remainder of this video. That way you can see where everything is. It's less confusing that way, and it's much more visual. But again, set AutoCAD to work the way you want to, and you can always put it back later. There are 2 main methods of interacting with AutoCAD, the mouse and the keyboard. Many users will use the mouse almost exclusively, using the keyboard only when it's unavoidable. However, the key to efficiency in AutoCAD is to take advantage of as many tools as you possibly can, and that includes the keyboard. If you look at the bottom middle of your screen, you will see a gray area, one line like this. And as you move the mouse over the top of it, move your crosshairs, it will highlight. This is the command line. Even if you don't use keyboard input, you are going to use the command line. AutoCAD will give you instructions on what to do next while using each of your commands, and those instructions will be brought to you by the command line. In the command line is where you type in your commands. In these videos, I will often say, type on the command line. When I say that, this is where you would type. Come down here, you can click in it, you'll see your cursor blinking, and you will type in a command. And as you saw, when I started typing, it popped up right by the cursor. And that's called the dynamic input. As I move the cursor around here with my line command, it's asking me to specify the first point of my line. And it tells me that here on the command line. And here is also the icon for it. So as I pick my first point, and you can see down here in the bottom, it says specify next point or undo. You can enter in commands there. You can get information about your current commands, and you can access a lot of other things. So not only can you execute commands through the command line, but AutoCAD will give you feedback through it, so keep that in mind. Many commands have options to them. Those options will appear in the command line. So there, I just drew my first line. Now to exit out of a command, press the Enter key or the Escape key. So that's to help get it out of your way. Now you can do a lot of things to the command line. You can left click in these little boxes here or really anywhere, but clicking in different places does different things. If I click on these little bars here on the left, so I click and hold and I drag it, put it to where I want. Now you see these little arrows? As I move the cursor to the top or the bottom or even to the sides of the command line, it gives me these little arrows. When I move to the corner, it's at a diagonal. Now I can stretch my command line, making it larger, more narrow, wider, however you want it to be displayed. I can click it and pop it back into place if I want. Now it used to be the command line was always 3 lines and you couldn't really change it, but you can set it however you'd like. By default or out of the box, it comes looking like this. So if we start something like the circle command, to start typing in the word circle, C-I-R-C-L-E. And you'll notice I typed it incorrectly. That's okay. The command line has an autocorrect feature, so it gives you some different ideas. So if I click on the circle command, I can start drawing a circle. And remember earlier I said that the command line will give you some instructions? Well, it tells you here to specify center point for circle, or I have these different options. And through these different options, I can draw a circle in a different way. Right now, by default, the circle command asks you for a center point for your circle. Just left click there and drag your mouse out somewhere else. And that is giving it a radius. Or do you want to give it a diameter? I can come down to the command line, click on the diameter option, and now I'm drawing a circle by diameter. So if I click again, there's my circle. So now you've drawn a line in a circle. So your command line gives you a lot of information and it's interactive. If you type it in incorrectly, you have things like autocorrect. You also have other things like autocomplete. So if I start typing in C for circle, I get a list here of different options of commands that start with the letter C. I can scroll down right here and keep looking. I can even go to the command, and then some of them get a little pop-up, get some information, and say, oh, hey, what is that? I'm not sure. If I press F1, now I'm going to be taken to the help command, which will open up help on the circle command. So you can get to a lot of different things right from your command line. As I start typing it in even more, it auto-corrects. It fills everything back in, and it tells me what I want to do. Now the command line is very intelligent. It keeps track of the commands that you use. If you use certain commands more often, then it will start to automatically fill in those commands ahead of the ones you normally don't use. AutoCAD is smart enough to customize itself to fit to your needs and to the way you use the command line. So in the command line, some of its really cool features is the autocorrect, the autocomplete, and adaptive suggestions. Now, these are the ones that I was just talking about. These are the commands you typically use that start with the letter C, so it starts populating that list with those. The command line has a built-in synonym list. It will return to you a list that might be a synonym of the command. So, for example, if you enter in the word symbol You start typing it in, it says insert, meaning you want to insert a block or a symbol. So if you're not familiar with all of the exact terminology and jargon that AutoCAD uses, you might find this helpful. You'll know when it's a synonym when it's in parentheses. What you're typing in is on the left, and the actual command AutoCAD believes you're talking about will be in parentheses. Another thing you might want to do, let's say that you have 2 lines, and you want this corner here to be round. Okay, so let's type in the word round. Now, RO is rotate, and round is a synonym for fillet. So if I click fillet, and I give it a radius distance of, let's say, 1, and then I can click on my edges, and you can see it makes that little round corner. So that's a nice little thing that you're probably going to find very useful as you learn AutoCAD. Other things that you can do with the command line you will see here is by getting your command history, if you click on this arrow, or if you press the F2 key. That will pop up this list, and when the list is up here, you can select the different items that are in here. You right click and copy it out. So if you do some things in AutoCAD that provides you with a list of information here that you need for a report or for an email, you can do that. For example, if I use the list command to give me information on this line, and I press enter, that will pop up my command history here and give me information on this line. See, it tells me it's a line, what layer it's on, gives me length and angle information. So if I need that information about an object, I can come in here, select it, right click and hit copy. I can go and paste it somewhere to use later on. And that's really cool. And you have other options here as well. If I click on this button, it brings up a list of the latest commands that I've used, and you can go back to it. And you can change some of your settings by clicking on this little wrench, and you have your input settings right here. And you can turn all this stuff off or on. You can even change the delay time for when things pop up or not. Now you can change the lines of prompt history. You can even input search options. So if I click here, I can say what I want to look for. So if I want to look for a hatch pattern, I can do that. If I want to look for a specific block inside my file, I can do that. And we'll talk later about what these things are, blocks and hatches, etc. But you can do a search of objects inside your drawing just by typing them in the command line. There's a second form of the command line, and I mentioned it earlier. It's called the dynamic input. This dynamic input is a visual aid that's intended to help the drafter's efficiency. It puts the command line at your crosshairs so that you don't have to keep moving your eyes from crosshair to the command line and back again. This way, it will help you to concentrate on what you're drawing. So if I'm drawing on this line, I want to keep my focus on this line. I don't want to have to divert my eyes down to the command line and back up again to know what's going on. So the dynamic input can help with that. So if you're a good typist, then you can type the word circle without looking at your keys or your fingers and just type it in and see that it's been typed in correctly on the command line. Press enter and draw a circle. And on by coming down to this little status bar. There are a lot of different things that you're going to see here that we're going to use. This is it right here, dynamic input. It's turned on right now, and I can tell because it's blue. See these boxes here, they're gray. Those features are turned off. If I left click on it, it turns it off. So now when I type in the word line, this pops up here on the command line. And I get a lot of different things here. I get the different commands, and I can do searches for them. Here I can do a search in the help, so I can learn more about the dim linear command, or I can do a search here on the internet for it. So you can get right to the internet search. If you're trying to figure out how to use something, you can get to it right here. It will open up your default browser and show you a different list of things that you can use. Now here at the bottom are some different settings. So if you have a linear brightness setting or a hatch pattern setting, you can get to those. And if you click on the plus signs, it will bring them up as well. Or click it again to bring it down and you can scroll. Now, a lot of users prefer this way. They don't like the dynamic input because they feel it gets in the way of the drawing. Another way to enter commands on the command line is through keyboard shortcuts. All commands can be executed by typing on the command line, but most commands have a keyboard shortcut. So for example, the circle command, you can type out the word circle, or you can just type in the letter C. That will also start the circle command. Press enter or right click and draw your circle. That saves you a lot of time. It also saves you from coming up to the ribbon, finding the circle command, clicking on it, and starting it. It's nice if I'm in, let's say, the Annotate tab, and I'm dimensioning my drawing. And I say, oh, wait a minute, I needed to draw a circle here. Well, I could stop what I'm doing, go back to the Home tab, go to the circle, and then go back to the Annotate tab, or I can just stay where I'm at, hit the letter C, press Enter, and draw my other circle. That can help you to work more efficiently. So you're using your mouse and you're using your keyboard. Now those little shortcuts there are called command aliases. It's just an alias that you can use for a command. Now, last tip, if you press the up and down arrow keys, this will toggle you through commands that you've entered. The up command goes up the list, the down command goes down the list. So if you want to find very quickly a couple of commands or just go back from one of the last couple of commands you've done, you can do that very quickly and get to what you want. And again, if it's the wrong one, press the escape key and you're out of there.